There's a woman in today's story who spent 9 straight months treating her daughter-in-law like a participation trophy. Every single milestone of the pregnancy, every pound gained, every craving, every doctor's visit, she had a comparison ready. Her other daughter did it better. Her other daughter glowed. Her other daughter never complained. Then that daughter had a miscarriage. And overnight, this woman decided the daughter-in-law's baby was hers to claim. The guy telling this story is patient, reasonable, gave her every chance. She filed for grandparents' rights instead. Big mistake. Let's get into it. My mom spent my wife's entire pregnancy comparing her to my sister. The day my sister had a miscarriage, she tried to claim our baby as her own. So I got her a restraining order and we disappeared. My mom and my wife Claire have never gotten along. I knew that going in. Knew it when we started dating. Knew it when I proposed. And if I'm being honest with myself, I probably let it drag on way longer than I should have. That part's on me. I kept telling myself that once we were officially married, once the thing was locked in and there was no undoing it, my mom would soften. People adjust. They accept what they can't change, and they move forward. At some point, you just don't have a choice. The thing is, Claire and I had been solid from pretty much day one. We met through a mutual friend, dated for about 2 years before I proposed, and by the time we got engaged, we'd already been living together for a year and a half without any real issues. She was easy to be around in a way I hadn't experienced before in a relationship. Level-headed, didn't play games, didn't need drama to feel like things were real. I knew pretty early that she was the person I wanted to be building something with long-term. The only variable I wasn't confident about going into the marriage was Lorraine. My mom, Lorraine, is 66 years old. She is not people. She retired about 3 years ago and has a lot of time on her hands, which has never been a healthy combination with her specific personality. She's always had exactly one measuring stick for everything and everyone in her life, and that measuring stick is my older sister, Diane. Diane is 41, lives about 40 minutes away from us, and according to Lorraine, she is essentially flawless. She got married at exactly the right age, bought a house at exactly the right time, made every major life decision in the correct sequence, with the correct level of deliberate planning, and never deviated from the template. In Lorraine's world, Diane's life is the gold standard that everybody else is failing to reach. Everyone else is just improvising badly and hoping nobody notices. Claire never had a shot against that. My wife is 30. She works in supply chain operations, she's good at her job, doesn't cause drama, and she's one of the more genuinely decent people I've been around in my life. But she didn't grow up in the kind of household Lorraine would have handpicked, didn't attend the school Lorraine would have chosen for her, and she didn't do things in that neat, predictable order that Lorraine had decided was the only acceptable way to exist as a person. So from day one, Lorraine ran cold. Not obviously cruel. She's too calculating for that. More like a compliment that always had something sharp inside it. A suggestion delivered pleasantly enough that you could almost convince yourself you were misreading it. A smile that got the technical requirements right and nothing else. Claire tried. I need to make that clear because it matters to the story. She showed up early to every family event. She asked Lorraine about her interests and actually remembered the answers the next time. She brought food when we visited, sent thank you texts after dinners, made sure Lorraine felt included in plans. She did everything you're supposed to do when you're trying to build a relationship with a difficult person. None of it landed. Lorraine had made up her mind about Claire before they'd had more than 2 real conversations. And Lorraine doesn't unmake decisions once she's made them. I pushed back on it a few times early in our relationship. Told my mom she was being unfair, that Claire was clearly putting in effort, that she deserved to be welcomed like actual family. Lorraine would get this expression, confused, a little hurt, like I was accusing her of something completely fabricated. I don't know what you're talking about, Owen. I've been nothing but kind. That was always the end of the conversation, because there was nowhere to go from there. So we settled into a pattern. Claire kept trying. Lorraine kept not warming up. I kept not pushing hard enough. We'd get through family dinners and holidays and whatever else, and just accept that this was how it was going to be. Then Claire got pregnant. We found out about a month before our wedding. The timing was a little messy on paper, sure, but we were stable, we both had good jobs, we had our place, And the idea of starting a family felt right in a way that's hard to explain more precisely than that. We were genuinely happy about it, so we told people. Most of them reacted the way you'd hope. Hugs, questions, excitement, someone crying in a good way. Lorraine said congratulations in the tone of someone reading fine print off a lease agreement. Then, within about 60 seconds, she pivoted to a story about how Diane had done things in the proper order. Marriage first, then a couple of years to establish a home, then a well-planned, well-timed pregnancy. She walked through the whole sequence like she was describing a recipe that only works if you follow the steps exactly. That was the first comparison. There were many, many more. For the next 9 months, Claire's pregnancy became Lorraine's personal scoreboard, and Claire was always losing. I didn't witness most of it directly. I was putting in full days at the consulting firm, and Claire would only tell me the bad stuff after the fact. She didn't want every evening to turn into a full debrief on my mother. She was protecting me from it, which is very Claire, and I let it happen when I should have been paying closer attention. But I heard enough over those 9 months, pulled together from different conversations, to know exactly what was going on. Diane had apparently never had a single day of morning sickness. Not one. Claire had it for most of the first trimester, the way most normal human women do, and Lorraine treated this like a character flaw rather than a biology fact. Diane had eaten perfectly throughout her pregnancy. Only organic food, nothing processed, exactly following every nutrition guideline she could find. Claire was struggling to keep anything down on some days, and craving whatever sounded edible on others. Lorraine would watch what went on Claire's plate like a referee looking for a violation. If Claire ate something that wasn't on Lorraine's approved list, she'd do this long, slow exhale, and sometimes say something, and sometimes just look, which was somehow worse. Diane's weight, according to Lorraine, had stayed perfectly managed throughout her pregnancy. Lorraine made a comment at a family dinner around month 6, I was sitting right there, that Diane had barely looked pregnant from behind. She said it while looking at Claire. Just stated it casually, like it was neutral information. Claire smiled and said, "That's sweet." And I sat there for a moment running through what I'd just heard, deciding whether I'd actually heard it. I had. I brought it up with Lorraine privately later that night. She acted confused and said she didn't remember saying anything like that. The baby shower happened in month 7. We'd planned it for a Sunday afternoon at a nice restaurant, about 25 people, pretty relaxed. Claire was happy with how it came together. Lorraine attended and spent a significant portion of it telling people about how Diane's had been so thoughtfully planned. The catering, the invitation design, the theme she'd chosen, how elegant the whole thing had felt. She wasn't directly putting down Claire's shower. She was just putting Diane's up over and over for 2 straight hours in the middle of Claire's shower. I caught Claire's mom looking at me from across the table at one point. Neither of us said anything. The maternity photos were their own category of incident. Claire did a shoot in the park late on a fall afternoon, golden hour light, and the pictures were genuinely beautiful. She was happy with them, and she deserved to be. She showed Lorraine on her phone at a visit shortly after. Lorraine looked through them, and then said something about how Diane had looked so radiant and at peace in hers. Not a direct insult. Just Diane again in the middle of Claire's photos. That particular needle delivered with that particular pleasant smile. There was one Sunday in month 7 where I came home to find Claire sitting at the kitchen counter staring at the wall. She told me Lorraine had stopped by earlier and spent a couple of hours talking about how Diane had carried so beautifully. Just a perfect little bump. You could barely tell from behind. Never looked puffy. Then glanced at Claire and said, "Some women just get big everywhere," in this pleasant, informational tone, like she was sharing a fun fact about the weather. Claire had laughed it off in the moment because that was her instinct. Diffuse, don't make it a thing. Sitting at our counter that evening, she wasn't laughing. I called Lorraine that night. She didn't remember saying it. 9 months of that. And the whole time, in the back of my head, I kept thinking, once Lily arrives, it'll reset. People soften when they actually hold the baby. It'll be different when she's real to everyone. Then, Diane had a miscarriage, and everything I'd been telling myself turned out to be wrong. Hold on, for the listeners, that's me jumping in, not Owen. I just need a second. This woman spent 9 months treating her daughter-in-law's pregnancy like a Yelp review compared against a 5-star experience. Morning sickness? Diane didn't have that. Weight gain? Diane glowed. Maternity photos? Diane radiated. The baby shower? Diane's was more elegant. And now, the exact moment the five-star experience falls through. She does a full 180 and wants to be Grandma Supreme. That's not grief. That's a woman who bet everything on one horse, and the horse didn't finish. Back to Owen. It was genuinely devastating news for everyone. Diane had been trying for a while, and no one deserves that outcome. Claire and I both felt awful for her. We sent flowers, checked in, gave her space when she needed it. That part wasn't complicated. What happened with Lorraine in the 2 weeks that followed was something else. She started calling more. Not to talk to me, to talk about Lily. How was she doing? How much did she weigh at the last checkup? Could she come by soon and hold her? A gift arrived. Then another one 3 days later, without a call to say it was coming. Nice gifts. Way nicer than anything she'd bothered with before. Expensive little outfits with the tags still on, a fancy mobile for the nursery, a set of picture books she said she couldn't wait to read to her. I looked at Claire when the second package arrived. Her expression was completely flat. Not angry, just flat. I knew what she was thinking because I was thinking it too. I just didn't want to say it yet. Within about a month, Lorraine was coming over every other day, then every day, then sometimes twice in one day. She stopped waiting to be invited. We'd given her a key for genuine emergencies, and she started using it to just let herself in. She'd walk through the door, go straight to wherever Lily was, and pick her up without asking Claire anything. If Claire was about to feed her, Lorraine would say she'd handle it. If Claire was holding her, Lorraine would put her hands out. Not ask, just put her hands out and wait, like it was already decided, and Claire just hadn't caught up yet. She also started with the comment thing again. Quieter than during the pregnancy, but same frequency. Oh, you're doing it that way? I did it differently. You look exhausted, hun. You should really sleep when she sleeps. Diane always made sure to take care of herself. Delivered pleasantly, one at a time, spaced just far enough apart that calling it out felt petty. But they stacked. Over the course of a week, they stacked into something heavy. Claire started looking like someone who'd been treading water for a long time, without saying anything about it. I kept telling myself it was grief, that Lorraine had been expecting a grandchild and lost it, and Lily was how she was processing that loss. I kept giving her room. Every week I'd tell myself, one more week, see if she levels out. She didn't level out. I came home early one afternoon, had a call that got canceled, came in through the garage, and heard Lorraine's voice before I turned the corner into the kitchen. She was telling Claire that the only way Lily would turn out functional was if Lorraine moved into our apartment and took over raising her herself. That's the actual sentence, she said. I stood in the hallway and let that land for a second. Claire saw me come around the corner. Her expression changed. Lorraine turned, saw me, and instead of stopping, she went further. She started going through a list: Claire's appearance, the state of the apartment, the way she handled the baby. She called Claire a mess. Said Lily would grow up broken and neglected if she was left in Claire's care. Said she was the only responsible adult present, and that we should be grateful she was willing to step in and do what needed to be done. I'm not a yeller. That's just not how I operate. But I told Lorraine calmly and clearly that she had just crossed every line she was ever going to get to cross in my house. I told her to leave and not come back. Pause for a second. This woman called a new mother unfit to raise her own child, in her own home, on purpose. This isn't a miscommunication. This isn't grief making someone say something they don't mean. This is someone who looked at a woman holding her newborn and decided the problem was the mother. I want to compare her to a movie villain, but I can't think of one with this level of unchecked certainty. Walter White at least had a moment of self-awareness somewhere in there. Lorraine went straight to final boss energy with zero hesitation. Anyway, she didn't leave quietly. She made a scene, stood in the hallway screaming, then outside the door, banging on it with both hands like we'd locked her out of something that was already hers. Claire was shaking. I ended up calling building security to get her off the property. She was still yelling as they walked her to her car. That should have been the end of it. The next several days were a flood. Lorraine's voicemails came in rounds. The furious ones first, calling Claire names, saying I'd been manipulated against my own mother, that I'd always been weak when it came to women. Then the weepy ones, long sighs. I only ever wanted to help this family. She never once mentioned what she'd said in our kitchen, never acknowledged a word of it, never even got close to it. Just a lot of, all I've ever done is love you all, floating free of any context or accountability. Then the extended family started in. Cousins I barely talked to, an uncle we hadn't seen in maybe 3 years. A couple of people I genuinely had to think about to place. Lorraine had clearly gotten to all of them first, and they were operating from a version of events that somehow didn't include anything she'd actually done. To them, we had cruelly cut a grieving grandmother out of her grandchild's life for no apparent reason. One cousin sent me a long message about how I was failing my family at the exact moment when family needed to come together. I read it twice to make sure I'd gotten it right. Another one said that what we were doing to Lorraine, after everything Diane went through, was unforgivable. I sat with that one for a while. Then came the social media posts. Lorraine started writing these long, emotional paragraphs about being cut off from her granddaughter with no explanation. How she'd done nothing but love us. How devastated she was. How she couldn't understand what she'd done to deserve this. Not one word about our kitchen. Not one sentence about calling Claire unfit to be a mother. Just a grandmother performing heartbreak for strangers online who had absolutely no context for what they were reading. The comments came fast. People she'd never met were calling us heartless, telling her she didn't deserve this, asking how any son could do something like this to his mother. Some of those people found Claire's accounts and sent her direct messages. One of them sent 3. Lorraine also called Claire's parents, got their number somehow, called them crying, walked them through her version of the whole situation. Claire's mom phoned us shortly after and said we should be the bigger people and find a way to move past this. Claire walked her through the real version, all of it clearly, without softening it. Her mom was quiet for a long time. Then she said, maybe she didn't mean it like that. Claire said she meant every word and hung up. We haven't talked much about that call since. It went on like this for about 2 weeks. Every day there'd be something new. A message from a cousin I hadn't talked to in years, a voicemail from Lorraine that had shifted tone again, a comment on one of her posts that Claire had somehow ended up seeing. It was exhausting in a way that's hard to explain unless you've been in it. Not one huge thing. Just a constant, low-grade pressure from every direction, every day, from people who had no idea what they were actually talking about. Claire stopped opening certain apps on her phone. I started letting calls from unknown numbers go to voicemail. We were both running a little ragged. I'll be honest, even after all of that, part of me was still looking for a way to give Lorraine an off-ramp. She's my mother. That's a difficult thing to fully release even when you know releasing it is the right call. But she didn't want an off-ramp. She wanted something I wasn't going to give her. We started noticing her in public. She stopped coming to the building after security removed her, but she'd started appearing other places. The grocery store 2 blocks from our apartment. The park where Claire took Lily for afternoon walks. The coffee place on the corner that Claire stopped going to after the 3rd time. She'd be there, far enough away that you couldn't technically say she was approaching, close enough that there was absolutely no question she was there on purpose. She never said anything. She never came toward us. She'd just stand and watch for a while and then leave. Every single time, she made sure we saw her before she went. It was methodical. It was designed to make us feel like we were never fully off her radar, and it worked. Claire started varying her routes. We started checking where we were going before we left the building. That's what it had turned into. We were changing our behavior because of her. We started writing everything down. Timestamps, locations, screenshots of every text and voicemail, photos where we could get them. I talked to a lawyer and was told that a restraining order would be difficult without a direct threat, but to document everything rigorously. So we did. For several weeks, we kept a running record of everything. Then she came to our building one afternoon. Calm, no screaming. She rang the bell. When I opened the door, she handed me a folder and walked back to her car without a word. Inside the folder were legal documents. She had filed for grandparents' rights. She was taking us to court for mandated visitation with Lily. After all of it, calling Claire unfit, the screaming outside our door, the daily intrusions, the social media posts, the public surveillance, she looked at all of that and decided the move was a lawsuit. Yo, timeout. Listeners, this is me, not Owen. I need to say this out loud. Filing for grandparents' rights after calling someone an unfit mother is a level of self-delusion I genuinely wasn't prepared for. She said, "You can't raise this child," and then ran to a courthouse asking to be legally inserted into that child's upbringing. That's like getting fired for stealing from the register and then filing a grievance because you didn't get a going-away party. She looked at everything she'd done and went, "Yes, this is the play." Bold strategy. The judge is about to have some thoughts. We got a real lawyer and got organized fast. We compiled everything: the texts, the voicemails, the timestamps of her parked outside the building, the documented public appearances, photos, screenshots of the social media posts. Our attorney went through the whole file and said we had a strong case. Lorraine kept pushing while we were preparing. Messages continued, now with a different tone, veiled warnings that she'd never stop fighting, that we were keeping Lily prisoner, that we'd regret every choice we'd made. She tried to leave gifts at our door. We sent them back. That became another wave of messages about how we were stealing a grandmother's love from an innocent child. She sent a handwritten letter at one point telling us to stop this nonsense and warning that she would not allow her grandchild to be kept from her. Interesting word choice for someone who'd initiated the legal proceeding voluntarily. One evening, I looked out the living room window, and she was parked across the street, sitting in her car, staring at the front of our building. I went downstairs and told her calmly that I was calling the police if she didn't leave immediately. She sat there with this small smile and didn't say anything. Eventually, she drove off. That went into the file. The court date came. I want to tell you I felt confident walking in. I didn't exactly. I felt prepared. There's a difference. I knew what we had, and I knew it was solid, but you don't really know how anything lands until you're in the room, and the room is deciding. Lorraine walked in, looking put together, but with a smug expression she wasn't quite managing to contain. Her attorney had clearly coached her on the devoted grandmother angle, because she played it hard. Quiet voice, sincere expression, hands folded. Her argument was delivered with a completely straight face. Loving, involved grandmother, unfairly cut off, Lily's best interests require her presence in the child's life. She painted herself as the victim of an unreasonable daughter-in-law, implied I'd been manipulated into this position, and left everything else entirely out. We presented the texts, the voicemails, the photos of her car parked across the street, time-stamped, the letter she'd slipped under the door, the documented public appearances at the grocery store and the park, with dates and times. We laid out the entire timeline, not just the kitchen confrontation, but the 9 months of comparison comments during the pregnancy, the escalating daily intrusions after Diane's miscarriage, the screaming scene outside our door, the social media campaign, the extended family harassment. The whole pattern, from the first passive-aggressive comment about Diane's pregnancy timeline to the afternoon she handed us the legal folder without a word. The judge didn't need long. Restraining order granted. Visitation case dismissed. As we walked out, she was yelling at us from across the parking lot. Said we'd ruined her life. Said I'd been poisoned against her. Said she'd never forgive us and we'd regret it. I didn't look back. I held Claire's hand and we walked to the car. Wait, I'm stepping in again. The judge reviewed the full picture and shut the case down completely. Texts, voicemails, parking lot photos, the letter under the door, 2 months of documented public appearances, all of it. And Lorraine's response to losing a legal battle she voluntarily started was to yell in a courthouse parking lot. She went through the entire court system, built her case, lost, and chose public parking lot screaming as the immediate follow-up strategy. I've seen better crisis management from people who just drew "go directly to jail" in Monopoly. At this rate, I fully expect her next move to be a GoFundMe called "Help Fund My Fight to See the Baby I Called Neglected." Anyway, we still weren't done. Final update. The extended family came at us hard after the ruling got out. People who hadn't once texted to check on Claire during the entire pregnancy, who'd never sent anything after Lily arrived, never asked how things were going, never showed up for anything, suddenly had very strong opinions about what kind of son I was. They called us cruel, said we were heartless, said Lorraine was just a grieving grandmother who wanted to be part of her grandchild's life, and we were monsters for using the legal system against her. We cut every single one of them off. No long explanations, no back and forth. If you chose to build a strong opinion about our family without ever asking us what actually happened, that's your choice. Live with it. Then, about a month after the ruling, a woman knocked on our door and introduced herself as a social worker. She'd received an anonymous report about neglect in our home and needed to conduct a welfare check. I knew immediately who had filed it. I knew before she'd finished the second sentence. The accusations in the report were completely made up. There was nothing to find because there was nothing wrong. Lily was healthy, the apartment was clean, everything was normal. But we still had to go through the whole process. The social worker came in, walked through every room, checked on Lily, asked us detailed questions about our parenting and daily routines. She was professional about it, which I appreciated, but that didn't make the experience less humiliating. There's something specific about being made to prove you're a good parent inside your own home, with your baby right there, because someone who hates you decided to make a phone call. I kept my face neutral the whole time. Claire did the same. We answered every question and we let her look at whatever she needed to look at. The case was closed within an hour. The social worker noted clearly that the report appeared to be unfounded and there were no concerns. That documentation went into our file with everything else. That was the line. We were done. We didn't announce it. We didn't tip anyone off or give a heads up to anyone outside the shortlist. We found a new place, handled the logistics quietly over a couple of weeks, and one day we just weren't at the old address anymore. New apartment, different part of the city, new phone numbers. We went fully private on all of our accounts, deleted every photo of Lily that had ever been posted publicly, and stopped posting anything at all. The list of people who knew where we'd gone was 2 close friends and Claire's sister. That was it. We didn't tell coworkers, didn't tell neighbors, didn't tell the extended family we hadn't officially cut off yet. Nobody. I know that sounds extreme. It wasn't, given what we'd been dealing with. The first few weeks in the new place had a strange texture to them. Not bad. Just the kind of quiet you have to readjust to after months of running on alert. I kept checking cars I didn't recognize when I pulled into the garage. Claire said she was doing the same thing every time she walked to the mailbox. We had cameras on the doors, and I'd check them before going to sleep out of habit, even when I knew there was nothing there. But nothing came. No unexpected knocks. No letters forwarded from the old address. No messages routed through mutual people. Just quiet. About a month in, a package showed up at the old address and got forwarded. When we opened it, Claire went still. Inside was a photo album of Lily, pictures we hadn't taken. Some were pulled from our social media before we went private, screenshots of photos we'd posted. Some were from Lorraine's own visits to our old apartment, pictures she'd taken herself. Lily in the nursery, in the bouncy seat, asleep in the crib. She'd printed them, organized them, labeled them, and put them in an album. Like she was archiving something that already belonged to her. We reported it. The authorities noted it and added it to the existing file. There wasn't much more they could do under the current order. We went completely dark after that. No social media presence. No photos shared with anyone outside the shortlist. Nothing. Okay, last check-in. This is me one more time, not Owen. I want to make sure we've got the full picture before this wraps up. Lorraine spent 9 months making this man's wife feel like a second-choice human being. Then tried to claim their baby like a timeshare after Plan A fell through. Filed for grandparents' rights. Called in a fake CPS report. Built a photo album of a baby she'd been legally removed from. And the end result of all of that? They moved. Went dark. Disappeared from her world entirely. She can file all the paperwork she wants. You can't court order your way into a family that already left. That's not custody law. That's just physics. Things have been quiet for a couple of months now. We're careful about calling it over because we've said that before and been wrong. But quiet is what we've got, and we're taking it one day at a time. Diane reached out to me through one of my old accounts. She said she'd heard what actually happened. Someone who'd been close to the situation had walked her through more than Lorraine's edited version, and she was disgusted by it. She said she understood completely if we wanted no contact with anyone from that side, but she wanted us to know she was sorry for how everything had gone. She didn't ask to see Lily. She didn't try to position herself as the reasonable alternative, didn't pitch us on giving things another chance. She just said she was sorry and left it at that. I didn't write back, but I didn't delete it either. That's about as much grace as I had available. Claire and I are genuinely good. Lily is healthy, growing fast, grabbing at everything she can reach, and she has very strong opinions about what she will and won't eat, which I honestly respect. We don't talk about Lorraine the way we used to. She's become something that happened to us instead of something that's still happening. Most mornings I don't think about her at all. which felt impossible 8 or 9 months ago. The restraining order is still active. We're still watching. But mostly, we're just living. I don't have a clean lesson to hand you at the end of this. Some people don't come around. Some people would rather file paperwork than look honestly at what they've done. You try to be patient, and they take it as permission to push harder. You try to be the reasonable one, and they mistake it for weakness. At some point, you stop trying to manage the situation, and you just protect what matters. We protected ours. It cost us relationships that I think we needed to let go of a long time before we actually did. I just wish we'd gotten there sooner. Drop it in the comments. At what point would you have pulled the plug? Because most of you watching probably know your number, and I'm betting it's a lot earlier than Owen's. Subscribe if you're not on the channel yet. We've got more of these coming, and they only get wilder.